Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and today's video is brought to you by Spam. No particular reason, I'm not even sponsored, I just think it's neat. Spam. Spam. I gotta be honest with you folks, I have been dealing with a particularly trying week. The kind of week that leaves you with a distinct lack of fucks left to give by the end of it, which is why I consider it a mercy that the mod I chose to cover this week was Hellrider. In a sea of gameplay mods that have, quite frankly, no shortage of mechanical complexity, Hellrider is a gameplay mod that instead keeps things refreshingly simple and straightforward, presenting you with an arsenal of relatively tactical feeling weaponry that's amped up just enough to give you that crucial feeling of catharsis when it comes to blasting a big stupid demon in its big stupid face. Hellrider is the kind of gameplay mod where not only does chain gun go, but shotgun go. It's the kind of mod where the muzzle flash on the assault rifle is so ridiculous that the alt fire exists purely so you can aim at something without suffering an epileptic seizure. This is a mod that replaces the chainsaw slot with an infinite ammo SMG and also has the good grace to give you a rechargeable supply of grenades. This is a mod that lets you fire guns while sliding towards or away from danger. Good grief, is Hellrider a lot of fun. Even then, despite the strength of its bombastic boomy beaponry. Beaponry, yeah, let's stick with that. The other ingredient that certainly helps contribute to the overall enjoyment of Hellrider, I'd say, is the smoothness of the movement. It's smooth, with a capital SMOO. It is honestly downright joyful to simply move about in this mod, and it's no doubt achieved with a splash of Tilt++. I can see the fingerprints of that submod throughout Hellrider, but there's certainly a few extra tweaks on top that just accentuate that wonderful sense of agility you have here. You certainly wouldn't be wrong to regard this as somewhat of a power fantasy, but certainly not on the same levels of ridiculous that mods such as these can occasionally reach. It's more of a measured kind of power fantasy. Less a feeling of being Arnold Schwarzenegger at the end of Commando, and more a feeling of being Keanu Reeves in John Wick. Not to imply that this is a mod that doesn't stray into the ridiculous at all. I mean, let me introduce you to the assault railgun. I mean, heck, it absolutely melts everything. And then there's the grenade launcher. I mean, sure, I could take or leave the primary fire. Those extra fireball trails from an impact don't really seem to do all that much damage if they hit a stray enemy, but that secondary, oh boy, that secondary can absolutely clean house. As for the top end of the arsenal in Hellrider, I'd say it's an interesting batch of weaponry. It's certainly fun. I mean, you cannot hold down fire on the minigun and not have a smile creep across your face, but it does seem somewhat offset with an overall low degree of damage dealing. I mean, it works gangbusters on lower tier enemy types, but you'll notice that there's somewhat of a drop-off when you get to enemies higher up in the hierarchy, requiring quite a fair degree more focused fire in order to bring down. And even then, that's going to be a tricky endeavor, because holding down fire on this puppy will mean that you'll be staring at the sky in relatively short order. So I hope you've got a pretty substantial mousepad, because if you want to stay on target, you're going to be dragging that mouse back a fair distance. The Barrett sniper rifle is a good bit of fun. It is loud, it is powerful, it is obviously long range, and crucially, if you line up all your demons in a row, you can bag yourself some good old-fashioned multi-kills, because this, my friend, has penetration. That, and it can kill a Baron in 3 shots, so what's not to like? And then there's the Gauss Cannon. The Gauss Cannon is quite possibly one of my favourite weapons from Doom 2016, and it always warms the cockles of my heart to see it rendered in various gameplay mods. However, I'm not quite sold on the effect that this particular version has on enemies. I mean, sure, it will thoroughly obliterate whatever you aim it at, but it's that secondary effect that I'm not entirely sold on. It will stun enemies with some kind of electrical discharge, maybe even deal a smidge of damage, but if we're thinking top shelf super weapon here, then I'm feeling it could stand to be beefed up a fair bit more. Doubly so considering that it's got a fairly limited ammunition supply. But as it currently stands, if I need to pick a weapon here that will reliably obliterate rain or shine, then the assault railgun is certainly where it's at. Oh boy, look at it go. I can't believe I've not mentioned the super shotgun yet. Every time you pull the trigger, it sounds like a thunderclap's just gone off right next to your eardrum. But then again, come to think of it, sound-wise, everything in this mod is ridiculously beefy sounding, and quite frankly, it's all the better for it. It's absolutely a mod that seems to revel in putting satisfaction first when it comes to pulling that trigger. As for how the overall arsenal of Hellrider meshes together, it's quite interesting really. You've got, for the most part, a relatively flat power curve in that early portion of the weapon tiers, so much so that you could happily switch back to the likes of your starting pistol or Desert Eagle depending on what you chose and still remain tremendously effective. Where it gets a little tricksy is when you get up to the grenade launcher, which I think is a-okay, but then between that and the assault railgun, there is an absolute spike in power to such a degree that it seems to actively diminish the other higher tier weapons that come later on down the line. So I feel like a little bit of tweakage could be done up that end, and if anything, that's entirely a possibility, because you should know this is not the final version of Hellrider. The version I'm currently playing being, of course, version 0.6. It should absolutely go without saying, however, that this is well worth playing in its current form. If you like the idea of sliding towards your enemy while unloading a shotgun full auto into its face, if you like the idea of double jumping, latching onto a wall and just obliterating enemies from a distance, if you just enjoy smoothness and fluidity of movement and just thunderous sounding weaponry, you are really gonna enjoy Hellrider. To that end, if you find yourself eager to give Hellrider a whirl for yourself, you'll find the link, as usual, in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.